Everyone, now before I start this video, I want to say that actually I think this must rank up there with one of the most important videos I've actually made about gambling addiction. So if you are in the process of quitting or trying to quit gambling, or you're actually currently abstaining from gambling and you just need to sort of keep that motivation up, then please, I do ask that you watch this video and you listen to it to the end, because actually, like I say, I think of all the videos I've made, and I've made a lot of videos on the subject of problem gambling, I think this is probably one of the most important. So before I get onto gambling, let me tell you what led me to make this video today. And that is basically what's happened to me and what I've been doing during this period of lockdown. Now, I'm recording this video in July 2020, which I'm sure you'll all know and all remember very fondly as the time we got told we couldn't leave our houses or go to the pub or go to the shops for 3 or 4 months. So, yeah, that's when I'm recording this video. And how I started this lockdown period was significantly different, I guess, to how I'm planning to end it. And now, for the first month or so that I was in this, we were in this situation, I found myself living a particularly unhealthy lifestyle. Um, I've always been quite a big drinker. I've always had a fairly bad diet. I'm one of the few people you'll actually find eating doner kebabs while sober. But during the first month or so of this lockdown period here in 2020, I was I was much worse than I normally was. I was buying beer by the crate and wine by the box, and drinking substantially more than I normally did when the pubs were open or whatever, and certainly substantially more than I should have been. Now, after a month or so had passed, a couple of comments from my wife, and also a realization that I was waking up looking incredibly tired, more so than normal, and actually feeling quite bad physically. I decided to sort of try and reduce my alcohol consumption, but also thought, well, what I'll do is I'll start going out on sort of a bit of walks, getting a little bit of exercise. I did that, and I actually found that I was really quite enjoying being out of the house, enjoying getting some fresh air. It gave me time to record some videos, as I'm sure you recall, but it also gave me a bit of time away with my own thoughts, and it was time that I wasn't sat at home basically indulging in sort of unhealthy eating and drinking habits. Now, as time rolled on, I sort of found myself out walking more and more until I got to a stage where I thought, you know what, I'm actually going to start measuring this. I'm going to start measuring how far I'm walking, and I was quite surprised that some days I was doing sort of 7, 8 kilometres, just in a walk, just an hour or a couple of hours or whatever. And so I thought, you know what, I'll start sort of measuring this a bit more. And in the end, I came to a conclusion that what I wanted to do was do 10 kilometres a day minimum, and I was going to do that right up to the end of the month of June. Now, at the start of this, I didn't really have any fitness agendas. I didn't really have any weight goals or anything like that. The whole point of it was I was quite enjoying the fresh air. I was enjoying being out of the house, and like I say, it was keeping me away, certainly for time, from some of these bad habits. And here comes the crux of it. Now, if you've got this far, then like I say, I'm about to sort of explain why this is relevant to gambling. If I had been doing this, if this was my goal for this walking, from this exercise, was to lose weight, was to get thinner, to sort of shift this beer gut that I've been working on for many years, then I would have lasted probably 2, 3 days a week, maybe 2 weeks, possibly even a month at a push, before I sort of thought, well, this is actually futile. I'm still overweight. I'm still feeling a bit unhealthy. I've still got the beer gut. This is a waste of time. This isn't, I'm not, I haven't got a chiseled six pack. I'm not beach ready, as I'd say in the magazines. I'm not super fit. And I'm still, as I look now, because I've just literally come back off a run, still sort of red, sweaty, and a bit of a mess. So I would probably have given up at that point. It was purely the fact that I was actually enjoying this. I was enjoying measuring it, and I was enjoying doing it to get myself out of the house and to enjoy the fresh air and exercise, that I persevered with this routine of walking and of exercise. But then a funny thing happened. About 6 weeks into doing this, a point at which where I actually started jogging a bit more, and actually started pushing myself harder and harder, a strange thing happened. I got out of the shower that morning, not something you need to envisage, my apologies, and got dried off and everything, put a pair of boxer shorts on. And I looked in the mirror, and something struck me. And that what struck me was the fact that I could read the writing across the front of the waistband of the boxer shorts. Now, this was for two reasons. Firstly, because it wasn't obscured anymore by my beer gut. And secondly, as if you're overweight, you'll know, and you wear boxer shorts, normally you breathe out and the top bit flips over, and you can't see the waistband. And I looked at that, and I call that my boxer short moment, because I looked and I saw a physical representation that what I had been doing, that the positive changes I had made, had actually had some effect. Now, that's a really, really small thing. For the vast majority of people watching, that probably isn't even a factor. If you've never been sort of overweight or had a particularly big gut, you wouldn't know this is even a thing. But the very fact that I could read the writing, which I'd love to say said Calvin Klein or Supreme or something, but I think it probably said Primark, no doubt, was a big thing to me, and it was a notable thing. It's the first factor that I could really, was tangible about my weight loss. So my point is this: I didn't go in to this exercise thinking I was going to be, an Adonis. I wasn't going to have a six pack. I wasn't going to have this perfect, body. Because if I'd done that, I would have given up straight away, because I wouldn't have noticed any physical difference within days, weeks even, and I'm certainly a million miles away still from that now. But I have seen a slow improvement. Now, if you look at gambling, right, this is not an easy thing to do, but if you think about the lifestyle or the life you could potentially have had, or the life you would like to have had you never started gambling. Think about the house you'd like to live in, the car you'd like to drive, the holidays you might like to go on, and then maybe you could have done if we hadn't discovered this horrible addiction. Firstly, you'll probably feel a bit sick, and you'll probably feel really quite down of these things that you could have achieved. So if I'd never started eating dodgy food and drinking too much, I could have had that perfect body, but I didn't. And years and years of being unhealthy has led to quite the opposite. The same as gambling. If I'd never discovered gambling, I could have had the bigger house, the nicer car, all the flash foreign holidays, all the designer clothes, and all the rest of it, all the other things the trappings that you might want from a sort of a lifestyle with more money. If I gave up gambling today, say I was still gambling, I gave up gambling today, I would wake up tomorrow and nothing would have changed. I'd still have the letters arriving from the creditors through my door. I still have a negative bank balance. I'd still be skint until I get paid, and I wouldn't have the big house, the flash car, and all the rest of it, because nothing's really changed. And if that was how I measured my progress in quitting gambling, then within weeks, 2 weeks, a month even, I'd think the whole thing was futile. Because very, very little would have changed. Maybe I'd be sleeping a little bit better. I wouldn't be waking up with that punched in the stomach feeling when you realise you had a particularly heavy loss than the day before. But other than that, my life wouldn't have changed significantly. So if I'd set my expectations up that somehow by quitting gambling for a couple of weeks, all this damage I'd done over years and years and years would be reversed, and suddenly I'd have this life that I could have had had I not discovered gambling, I would make the assumption that the whole thing was futile. I'd make the assumption that quitting gambling was a waste of time, and that I might as well not bother. In the same way, if I had decided I wanted that perfect gym body, and I thought, well, I'm going to go out for a run, and the next day I didn't wake up, and I still had the beer gut, I still looked red and sweaty and horrible after I'd been out for a jog, then I'd very quickly assume that the whole thing was pointless, and I'd give up giving up. So what's my point? Well, funnily enough, although this sounds quite demotivational, it's quite the opposite. You need to set your expectations when you start this period of abstinence, when you start quitting gambling, in the same way as you need to set your expectations when you start exercising, when you start going to the gym, when you start dieting. You're not going to undo the damage of a bad habit for many years overnight, not in days, not in weeks, not in months even. But I always say the best time to quit gambling was when you started, was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 5 years ago, last month, whenever it was. Right, that was the best time to quit gambling. The second best time to quit gambling is today. It's now. Okay? You're not doing this for you now. You're not doing this for you tomorrow. You're not doing this for you in a month's time. You're doing this for future you. You're alive. You're still on this planet. Yes, you might feel like you've wasted a lot of your life gambling, but the longer you continue, the more you're wasting. You're not making these changes for you now. You're not making these changes for you tomorrow. You are making these changes for future you. If you continue doing what you're doing now, in 5 years' time, you're going to be even worse off. You're going to be in more financial trouble, and you're going to be no further on. You'll look back at this moment and you'll think, why didn't I stop then? If I stopped then maybe, yeah, in 5 years' time, you will be closer to that life that you want, to that lifestyle you like. Maybe you will be closer to that holiday in the Seychelles or that new car. But don't expect things to change overnight. You will see benefits. Like my boxer shorts moment, you will see benefits. You will see an improvement in your sleep pattern. You might even see little things like you've got 50 quid left in the bank account at the end of the month, or you can pay off, 100 quid or something from a debtor that's been, or a creditor, sorry, that's been chasing you. And you can feel that sort of small victory, that small sense of satisfaction that you're making leaps and bounds, you're making progress. But don't expect to quit gambling and wake up in a week's time and feel infinitely better. You might not. You might actually feel worse in the short term because you are coming to terms with what you've done, you're coming to terms with how the recovery is going to work, and you're actually dressing things face on, you're confronting things. And that's particularly important when it comes to the financial side of things. You will be confronting them, you'll be looking at your debts and you'll be addressing them, and that might make you feel worse in the short term. But it's a step in the right direction, and you have to make those small steps so future you can look back and go, that was the moment. That was my boxer shorts moment, as I will forever call it, where I looked and I went, you know what? Yes, I'm still overweight. Yes, I'm still drinking, but substantially less, and yes, I'm still, got a long way to go before that ultimate goal, before that sort of pinnacle, that perfect moment that you want to reach. I'm a long way from that. But had I not made a step, had I not started doing what I was doing, I'd be steps further away still. I'd still be going backwards rather than going forwards. If you've been gambling for 20 years, you can't expect to give up gambling for a week and suddenly everything's sunshine and rainbows and there's a new BMW on the drive and you're off to the Seychelles in 2 weeks. You can't expect that to happen because that won't happen. But you are a step closer to it, and that is important. That is your boxer shorts moment. I do hope that helps. Like I say, it's meant not to be demotivational, but it's meant to keep you on the right track. If you set your expectation levels too high, if you expect things to get better too quickly, you expect things to sort of switch around just because you quit gambling for a little bit, they won't. But you need to do that in order for your future life to be that better, to actually eventually be able to reach that goal. Because if you don't stop now, you will never reach that goal. In fact, it will get further and further away. By making changes today, future you can look back and be proud of what you've done. Thanks for watching, guys. Take it easy.